Okay, so um, okay, so good afternoon class. Attendance muna tayo. So IT 17 group 1, section 1. So today is November 11. Abaga. Abaga. Abuan.
Present, sir.
Present Abuan. Bakani. Abuan present. Abaga absent. Bakani. Wala pa. Balsita. Balsita. Bergantin.
Sir, present.
Borillo. Borillo.
Sir, present, Bergantin.
Bergantin. Present. Borillo. Borillo absent. Duque.
Present, sir.
Present. Gauna.
Present, sir.
Present. Gosian. Gosian. Jose Anjuniljun. Jose Anjuniljun. Hularbal. Hularbal. Marzo. Gerald. Mendoza.
Present, sir.
Nares Joshua.
Sir,
Ay,
present.
sorry. Sino na? Marzo. Mendoza present. Okay. Ano pa? Nares
Present, sir.
present. Surat. Ian. Surel. Surel. Balubar.
Present, sir.
Marzo.
Sir.
Sir, Borja, present.
Marzo. Burilio. Okay.
Sir Abaga, present.
Abaga. Present. Corpus. Regi. Corpus Regi. Lacumus Jane.
Present, sir.
Gapi.
Present, sir.
Carianto.
Present, sir.
Lasaga.
Present, sir.
Obra.
Present, sir.
Present. And Tabapunda.
Present, sir.
Okay, repeat again. Attendance, Bakani. Balsita. Gosian. Jose. Hularbal. Surat. Surel. Corpus. Okay, so let's go now to our Google Classroom. Madali lang to. Okay, so last week we discussed on case tools. I gave you some activity for you have to upload the chapter 1 and chapter 2, but the deadline, I moved the deadline from supposedly November 12, that is tomorrow. Yun nga lang, because of parang marami kayong ginagawa ata sa ibang subject, so move na lang natin. The deadline will be by Monday, that is November 15. Okay? Yan. And then case tools pa rin to eh. Yan. So, reference and then Google Meet. And yesterday, we discussed, nagbigay lang ako ng ganito, activity. So, yesterday, I gave you an activity. So, kindly upload anything that you've done kasi I want to know what are the updates of your proposed system. Baka naman hindi kayo gumagawa ng system ninyo. Okay? So, I want to have an update of your proposed system. So, take a screenshot, then upload. And then, I'll be discussing today chapter 3. And then, I'll be giving you an activity for chapter 3 by next week na lang siguro. Okay, so let's start with chapter 3. So, I posted some examples for the chapter 3. Yan. So, discuss ko muna ang chapter, open muna natin chapter 3. So, this is an example of chapter 3. Okay. For the chapter 3 results and discussion, by the way, this will be your format for this coming capstone. Probably by next sem ata is capstone yun na. So, this will be your format. Okay? For the results and discussion chapter 3, yung first paragraph niya will be introduction. So, for example, this chapter present the findings from the implementation of the system Likert scale was used to measure the indicators to which they agree or disagree with the question. But then again, there are you can change the introduction if you want. There are a lot of references here, or you may ask your teacher later on about samples of a document or manuscript. Okay. And then here you have to discuss per objective. Chapter 3 you have to discuss per objective. Note this chapter you have to discuss per objective. Discuss your objectives individually. You can put some of the screenshots of your system. Example, in this study, this study is Toda Away. Yan. Ito yung title ng study nila. Toda Away, I ride hailing app for jeepneys. And then for the objectives, they have 3 objectives. Number 1, reserve a guaranteed seat any time of the day, especially during peak hours, 7 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. So, close ko na lang yan. Chapter 3 to. Bakit na to? Ay, nadoble. Ayan. So, take note. Objective number 1, reserve a guaranteed seat anytime of the day, and etc. So, here in the results and discussion, chapter 3, the first objective. Reserve a guaranteed seat any time of the day. So, this objective aim to help passengers. So, you have to discuss. Passengers and drivers to have easy access in terms of public commuting. The researchers conducted an interview and actual testing that would determine if the application can reserve a seat for a passenger within a day during the interview and so on. Yun. Para magkukwento na kayo dito. Okay? Discuss anything about your first objective. And then, if it is necessary that you have to put some screenshots of your system, pwede rin yun. Pwede rin kayo maglagay ng screenshots. And then you have to discuss. So for example, here figure 51, request confirmation details and confirm passenger request. Nag-release ng hand. Surel present. Later on, I'll be checking your attendance again. Okay, so figure 51, for example, request confirmation details and confirm passenger's request. And then discuss. Figure 51 presents the list of transactions in the driver application that proves that passengers can reserve a seat any time of the day. The list of transactions contains the names of passengers who used the application to reserve a seat within the day. The list of of ganyan. Passengers can be seen every time the driver would end its travel to the certain route and so on. So yan. Parang diniscuss nyo lang per figure or per screenshot. And then the next objective is, for example, reduce travel time by allowing jeepneys to travel without having a complete number of passengers in the terminal. So here, the second objective, reduce travel time by allowing the jeepneys, etc. And then discussion, most of the time, the jeepneys must be fully loaded before leaving the terminal. But though the application, the driver can leave the terminal without its jeepney being fully loaded, the application has a feature wherein the driver can set the status of the jeepney as vacant or full. If the jeepney driver did not set its jeepney status as full, the driver can receive reservation requests from the passenger. Through this reservation, the driver can have guaranteed passengers to be picked up along the way by having reservation. So magkakaroon daw sila ng reservation. So the driver can easily have passengers that would complete the total number of passengers that would make the jeepney fully loaded. If the driver has guaranteed passenger, the driver can already leave the terminal without having the complete number of passengers instead of waiting for the jeep to be full. Yan. So parang kwan siya, no? Parang Grab. Yun nga lang ito for jeepneys. So they have a screenshot in here, and this is the feature side, one of the features of the application for the driver, para sa driver to. And then the driver can see some of the passengers. I mean, anong tawag nito? Reservation, yung mga nagpa-reserve, yan, okay. Ito yung, for example, yung mga nagpa-reserve nagpa-reserve. So, meron tayong confirm. So, in your study, you can put some screenshots and then you have to discuss. Okay. Figure 53, the set jeepney status and reservation request. The finding of the research of this object is that by using the application, the driver can leave from the terminal without having a complete number of passengers, but can still complete the numbers of passengers through the reservation of the passengers. Therefore, by leaving the terminal earlier instead of waiting until the jeep is full, it can reduce the travel time of the jeepney. Oh, by the way, you have to discuss also your findings. Next, reducing unnecessary stop because of the passengers loading and hunting along the way. So reducing travel time by reducing unnecessary stops because of the passenger loading and hunting along the way. So this objective aimed to help the drivers by having insured passenger along the way to lessen its stop during the trip to reduce the travel time. Through the reservation, the driver will no longer need to constantly stop and hunt for passenger because the driver already had insured passengers. Example, figure 53. So, nag-set siya ng figure and so on. Yan. Figure 54 naman, list of passengers to be picked up. And then, information. Yan. Pick up. This is the details of the driver, jeepney name, plate number, TODA, for example, San Gabriel, driver name, fare, estimated time of arrival, and driver in 8 minutes. I think their study, they incorporate GPS. Parang naglagay sila ata dito ng GPS so that they will give some estimation for yung estimated time of arrival, and then the distance. Ayan. So naglagay sila ng GPS. So figure 5 shows the reservation has an estimated time of arrival included in their details during the confirmation of the request. This indicates that estimated time of arrival of the jeepney from the pick-up location of the passenger. So if you notice, paano malalaman ng application what will be the estimated time of arrival and the distance without putting the GPS in their application. So meron pa rin silang GPS. And the finding of the research also, okay, so after the discussion, you have to discuss also the findings. The findings of the research on this objective is that the driver can already have insured passengers and does not need to have a frequent stop during the trip. This would lessen the stop of the passenger hunting, hence the travel time is being reduced. On the other hand, this would result to the shorter dapat in the shorter estimated time of arrival on the driver. It means that the fewer, maganda yung Google, this is Google, ano to? Word document. Uy, sorry, Google Docs. And Google Docs. Yeah. So, you have to discuss also the findings per objective. Example natin. Therefore, it can be proved that travel time can be reduced by reducing the unnecessary stop through, parang paulit-ulit lang through the reservation of passengers and based on the estimated time of arrival of the driver. Next, the last one, determine the usability of Todaway. By the way, this will be our next topic. Our next topic will be the usability. Okay, determine the usability of Todaway using the ISO 9126. The survey was conducted to know if the application conforms the ISO 9126 standard. The respondents were divided into 2 categories, 10 passengers and 10 drivers. The chosen respondents were chosen using the random sampling, and then I'll be discussing what are the sampling techniques later on. Wherein the respondents are selected randomly from a set of drivers and passengers who were available in the terminal at the time. The respondents were chosen because they are the users of the application. You have to state why you choose those respondents. So in their study, their explanation why they choose the respondents, because the respondents are the main user of the application. And then you have to discuss per indicator. Yan, indicator functionality. Ay, yung terms pala. In terms of functionality, in terms of reliability, and so on. So I'll be discussing to you this one later on. By the way, for the determining the usability of your proposed system, if you notice in your chapter 2, I'll be opening chapter 2, sample document for chapter 2. For the chapter 2, at the last part, sa last part, last part in the testing, or for example here the cutover, they mentioned that they will be using Likert scale for the survey. Okay, so for the Likert scale, you will be using this one to determine if your application or your system is usable or not usable. Okay, you using the ISO 9126. I have here some example of the ISO 9126. So this is an example. So survey questionnaire to determine the functionality, reliability, functionality, efficiency, maintainability, and portability of the proposed system using the ISO 9126. Direction, please rate the system to determine the functionality, reliability, usability, efficiency, maintainability, and portability by checking the items using the scale below. So scale 1 will be strongly disagree and scale 5 is strongly agree. Okay, yan. We have terms, functionality, reliability, usability, efficiency, maintainability, and portability. I'll be discussing to you this one by next week, and how you will discuss that in your chapter 3, results and discussion. So, i-discuss ko to next week kung paano mo to i-discuss, paano yan, ano yung 4, 4.3, ano yung agree, usable, neutral, and so on. Ayan. Okay. Ayun, kala ko hindi siya naka-record. Buti na naka-record. Okay, that's all. Attendance muna tayo, baka mayroong pan. Bakani, Christian, Jetro, Hukutan, Balsita, Gosian, Jose, Anjunil Jun, Hularbal, Surat, Surel, Corpus. Okay. Uy, meron Hularbal. Hularbal.
Sir, present.
Ayun. Sino pa? Surel.
Sir, present.
Ayun. Ulit. Bakani. Bakani, wala. Balsita. Balsita, wala. Corpus. Ayun, so Corpus. Corpus Regi, present. Again, Bakani, Balsita, Go, Sian, Jose, Anjunil Jun, and Surat.
Sir, present.
Surat, present.
Yes.
Okay, so any question, class? None? Oh, by the way, class, announcement. We still have 2 weeks. 2 linggo na lang. Okay? Week 12 will be your midterm exam. And during your midterm exam, you will be presenting whatever you've done in your proposed system. Bakani. Bakani present daw. Okay? So, dapat meron na kayo yung system ninyo kasi you will be presenting that, and that will be one of the input in your class standing and exam in this subject. May question? Wala?
Wala, sir.
Okay, so I think parang ready na ata yung system ninyo eh.
Hindi pa, sir.
Hindi pa. Yun lang naman, inventory. It's either inventory or point of sale, or if you want both, okay lang. Okay then, so if you don't have any questions, so stop ko na to.